aggressive when it comes to business and negotiating, because to me, they want to win. To me, the definition of winning means somebody loses. So my philosophy is if you can adopt a business practice that's based on win-win. So when the guy leaves, he's got to me, victory in a negotiation is when the other guy walks away feeling it was a great deal. So many times I've been in business, I've come out with somebody and they said, yes, we got it. And I look at the other guy's face and he's completely deflated and he feels he's just been screwed. And I said, you know what, that actually wasn't a great deal, because he won't do business with you again. To me, that's not the art of negotiating, that's the art of stealing, because you nick the deal. So to me, I'd much rather, and I'll give you an example. I was negotiating with somebody not so long ago, and we were pretty close to getting the deal. And I could see the guy, when somebody starts to move their collar, they start moving out, that body language is he's sweating. And I said, if you had to look at this deal a year from now, and you and I met at a bar, and I said to you, what was that deal like you did with James Caan? What would you say? He said, too tough. I said, I appreciate your honesty. I said, which bit of the deal is making you really uncomfortable? He said, you know what? He said, you really squeezed me hard on payment terms. You're looking at 14 days payment. Between you and I, James, I'm not even sure I can do that. And I thought, it's really interesting. If I hadn't have asked the question, I'd have walked away and actually the deal probably wouldn't have happened. I said, without trying to screw me, what do you think would be workable from your perspective? He said, if you could give me 30 days, just give me 30 days payment, at least I know I can deliver the service and get paid within a time period that allows me to make a margin. I said, you know what, I'm happy with 30 days, because actually it wasn't going to make a huge difference. But that to me is win-win. Where now, then as we were leaving, we were walking up to the lift, I said, just before I go, if I ask you the same question now, a year from now, and I said to you now, if you look back, what was that deal like? He'd say, you know what, I would say you were firm, but you were fair. And to me, that's probably a much better balance. I want to be firm because, I don't want to be a walkover because I've got to run a business. But the most important thing is I think you have to be fair, because to me, that relationship means I can go back and we'll do business again. So to me, that would be, I suppose, the best lesson I can share with you.
Now, they say that the world was built in... Thank you. They say the world was built on 7 days, and you have a new book coming out about how to build a business in 7 days. Is that even possible?
I think it is, and I'll tell you why. I spent a lot of time writing this book, because the book was based on the principle that if you look at businesses, there are literally hundreds of thousands of people who start businesses. And sadly, hundreds of thousands of people fail in business. So the principle to me is, how can I reduce the period? So I think in the book, the first focus and the lesson that I'm trying to share is we need to learn the art of failure. Because in Britain, I think one of the things that we are very bad at is understanding that failure is the journey of success. The problem is, to us, when something goes wrong, we become deflated and we give up. What I'm trying to kind of share is actually, in any journey of business, you will have areas that things will not work out. What you've got to be able to do is understand that that is part of the process. So it's a bit like sales. If every time you pick up a phone and you call a customer, he said yes, it wouldn't be selling. So you know that part of the process is you have to get a number of no's before you get a yes. I think business is like that. Your first idea isn't always your best idea. And if I give you an example, if you take the chap who launched McDonald's, the day he launched McDonald's, he was 63 years old. To me, there's a message in that. He'd spent his life making mistakes until he eventually found the one that works. And I passionately want people in Britain to recognise that it's a process.
Fail forward?
Yeah, absolutely right. So I think the principle for me, I think you can start a business in 7 days if you understand that you will make mistakes. So let me kind of share with you the principle of making a mistake. I invested in a business a few years ago. I was going through a great period where a lot of the things that I was doing were just, they were just working. And somebody approached me and said, I've got a business you might want to buy. It's a chain of sandwich stores called Benji's. In the UK, it's about 130 stores across the country, 600 staff, 50 million turnover, quite a decent sized business. And I thought, great, actually, I've never owned a kind of a high street brand, I'll definitely buy that business. I bought the business and I bought it and it was cheap. And when I bought it, it was losing about £100,000 a week. And my biggest mistake, and as an entrepreneur, I preach to everybody that the one thing you must do at all costs is you must do your due diligence. When you invest your own money into something, you have to research it, you have to do your due diligence. And I got a little bit carried away, so I made a huge mistake. I didn't do any due diligence. I looked at the turnover, looked at the brand, had a number of stores. I met the management, I met the bank, and literally within 5 days I bought the business. And fundamentally, and I kept the business for 26 weeks. Every Friday, I was literally writing a cheque for £100,000 a week for 26 weeks to keep this business alive. And basically, the problem with the business was its cost base was too high. So as an example, and some of the folks in here who may know the brand, Benji's were in Oxford Street, Tottenham Court Road, Bang, every prime location. And the problem was, when they were building the business, they were going for market share and branding rather than profitability. So as an example, the store in Oxford Street, the rent used to cost us £250,000 a year. And the shop could never take that much money. And one day, I walked into the store, literally, because I was so frustrated why we couldn't make a profit. And I stood there all day long with my clicker button to see how many people came in. And I realised that the shop was packed all day. We couldn't have got any more customers in. And even though the shop was packed, it couldn't take enough money to cover the rent. So the only other idea I could have is, why don't I put the price up? So that we're selling cheese sandwiches for £1.30, I'll charge £1.70. The minute I put it up to £1.70, everybody went to Pret. Because they thought, well, if I'm going to pay £1.70, I may as well buy from Pret. I don't need to buy from Benji's. So what I learned was the brand was too sensitive on price. So if you can't increase the price and you can't get any more people in the store, it's a failed business model. Now, that took me a day when I actually did my research. Because I hadn't done my research, I made the mistake and I lost £2.6 million. Sorry, this is probably a customer from Benji's, wants a refund. So the lesson I suppose what I'm sharing with you is that you can set up a business in 7 days if you do your research, if you understand the proposition. And I go into a lot of detail in the book to basically share with you the thousands of people I've met who come to me with business ideas. And what I'm going to share with you in the book is actually what made it difficult for them. So why did they not succeed? What did they do that prevented them?
You're explaining the why, not just the how. And I think that's the problem with many books out there, is that they explain how to do it, but they don't explain the why, the concepts behind it, and understanding the failure so that you can put the pieces together. Meaning, I think it's too transactional, and they don't go behind the scenes. And I think that's why a lot of business books fall short, and yours doesn't, because it really goes to the core of the essence.
And I use genuinely live examples. So every point, I give you a live example of how I made that mistake, or somebody I met on Dragons who actually had the idea. So, for example, with Motor Mouse, to me that's a gem of an idea, because there are people out there, literally thousands of people, who I think will invest hundreds of thousands of pounds on something that, frankly, they didn't need to do. Because I know, and I think that one of the lessons that I learned out of Dragons is people who are entrepreneurs, we underestimate the expertise of the buyer. When you go to somebody to sell a product, and let's say I'm selling him this cordless mouse, you know what, he would have got it. If I'd shown him an actual car, and I said, listen, you've got a right click and a left click, and there's a wheel at the top, and I could have shown him a computer-generated graphic, he would have got it. Now, the key thing he would have said to me is that, if you can deliver me that, I would be interested. My next question would be, what would be your price point on that product? And he said, in this particular instance, $29.95. So I need to sell it for $29.95, which, by the way, James, you have to sell to me for £12. There lies the challenge. If I can produce that item at £12, I know I've got an order. Now, you could have spent literally a year with prototypes, and now, because what would have happened, I'd have gone to China and they could have said to me, the cheapest you can make that car for is £15. There's your example of 7 days. You've killed the point. It can't be done. If you can't make that car for £15, that's the best price you're going to get. You cannot get it into the high street because the price was the key issue. Now, he could have spent 18 months